human capital development. Capital development refers to the process of acquiring and increasing the number of skilled persons who have the education and experience which are critical for the economic growth of any country. Report shows Nigeria has continued to invest heavily in the development and training of our human resources, with budgetary allocations in education as government's effort aimed at boosting human capital is still insufficient. So let's now examine the impact of human capital development on the micro and macroeconomic performance of Nigeria. Adeyemi Olarewajoja is a globally recognized HR influencer and possesses hands-on experience in human resources, business analytics, enterprise risk management, and strategy and advocacy. He joins us via the telephone now to discuss this. Thank you for your time on the program. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Now, the use of human capital development and deployment of human resources and skills, and how this is linked to economic performance of an organization and economies are key factors in the concept of human capital development. But how rightly do you think Nigeria is deploying the concept of human capital development? Let's start from there.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Good morning. Good morning, listeners, and for the organizers of this program and the sponsors. Looking at the deployment of human capital in Nigeria, I think we're still struggling because the deployment of human capital has gone quite advanced. It's gone as far as people tech initiatives where technology has been mixed with human capital deployment for efficiency and effectiveness across the private sector and the public sector. But again, here in Nigeria, living the case of the COVID-19, which brought some kind of a setback for us. I think the deployment recently, in the past few years, has been quite challenging. First, because of the resources from the part of the government, and also the fact that businesses are more focused on profitability. Though within the small scale business, the medium scale business, it's gaining ground, it's becoming relevant every day. But again, if you look at the overall perception about it, there's still some, uphill climbing gradually.
There seems to be a disconnect between investment in human capital and economic performance. How do you think we can marry these two together based on the background we just painted?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you look at investment in human capital, is it the right investment? That's the first question. Because in building human capital, the focus should be on building competencies, and those competencies should drive economic values for organizations. And again, when organizations grow, definitely the country will grow. But unfortunately, the basis of investing in human capital at times are just based on the need to invest, not probably the need to build certain competencies. Many organizations in both private and public sectors really have that challenge of determining how the investment should be. Investing in human capital is not just about spending the money, it's about spending the money rightly. And again, the connection will be if an X investment is being made, what is the expected output, which again has been a challenge. So the best way to marry that is from each time to the other. When government or private sector players need to invest in human capital, the outcome should clearly be stated, and it should be followed through so that results can be achieved and it can translate into economic values both for the organization and for the country at large.
I do know that the private sector is doing quite a lot in that regards because they need to maximize output. And the government as well is also doing its own bit. But what do you think, or who do you think should lead in this call?
Yeah, currently the public sector is leading in that call. I was the project manager for the service-wide investment in training by the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation of Nigeria. It was a very huge investment, and all is for the civil service transformation, which is gaining ground, especially with the introduction of the performance management system. So when government sets the tone, the private sector definitely will be challenged. Though from the private sector end, also like you rightly said,
Right.
there has been investment, but again, government setting and pushing it from the top have a lot of impact on the economic, situation of the country. So if you ask me again, I would tell you that what government is doing is right, leading it, and the private sector are also pushing to support, and this will create sustainable economic system for Nigeria.
So how do you think we can create a balance? I mean, the government is doing its own part to impact on the national output, and of course the private sector, which will also impact on the micro economic level. So how do you balance it?
Yeah, the balancing comes from when both work together. Every economy relies on both the public sector and the private sector. The public sector provides social investments or social services, whereas the private sector provides economic services. So to balance both, I would rather say each segment should invest rightly, so that at the end of the day, we have a balanced system, we have a balanced country, we have a system where the private sector is running efficiently, effectively, as well as the public sector. So the balance can be created when these investments are rightly done, and then there is connection between what flows from the public sector to the private sector and what flows from the private sector back to the public sector to have a wholesome economy.
Yeah. Let's look at example of some countries. India is known for technology and its giant strides in pharmaceutical products. The Germans are known for the machines, and China is also known for their innovation in mass labor and industrialization. So how do we create a viable labor market that will impact on the nation's overall output? And of course, what lessons you think we can learn from there?
Okay, one painful thing. Thank you for that example of China, example of India, example of these emerging economies. The lesson for us is to build our industries. Excuse me. We need to build our industries because this is the pivot for on which every economy rests. Nigeria is blessed with huge human capital, and this human capital can be utilized in industrialization and transformation of the macro and micro businesses across Nigeria. So to really create that effectiveness, the impact, and building the value chains, I think we need to, as a country, industrialize. Okay, and industrialization, we have opportunities in agriculture, we have opportunities in mineral resources, mining, we have opportunities in tourism, we have opportunities even in financial services. I mean, in Africa, we are recognized one of the biggest financial services providers, so it's huge opportunity we have there in those areas, and I think we should maximize that. But again, if we have foreign direct investment, building our industries, mass labor, and also having a very sound employment law in place, it will build the micro businesses, the small scale businesses, and industrialization at the same time. And I can tell you the dividend for the economy will be so great. That is, the perspective I'm looking at it from. Thank you.
Okay, as we wrap up now, I want us to look at, because some people say you cannot talk about human capital development without education, factoring education as well. So how do we incorporate or integrate education or investment in education in this regard?
Yeah, please take it again.
So I was asking you that some believe that you cannot talk about human capital development without education as well. So what kind of investment would you want to see in that regard, and how do you think we can integrate or factor in education in that respect?
Yeah, first we need to look at the curriculum of our education, because education, educational system to a large extent does not have strong correlation with what is out there. So the curriculum should be such that prepares people for the labor market. And again, in getting to the labor market, it will be more like an expanded investment. So there is need for review and consolidation of a new educational system in Nigeria. I believe we need our educational reform as a country, and that educational reform should tend towards things around entrepreneurship, around professional value systems. Again, if we are connecting it to what happens out there, a lot of people in the private sector, they are creating that bridge between the educational system, which we call the town and the gown. The connection between the gown, that is the educational system, and the town, which is the business environment, is to have conversation between these two parties, these two stakeholders, wherein we look at what is happening in the real world out there, and we're bringing that into our educational system to build the right foundation, so that people coming out of higher institutions and other educational system are prepared for the business market.
So we've got to go now. Who should lead in this call? You have the Commission and Council of, that is National University Commission, NUC. You have the Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities. You have Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, that's NECA. You also have National Board for Technical Education and ITF as well. All of these, you have them in place. Now, who should lead in this call? 30 seconds. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, I think everybody should lead. They have their own call differently. It's just a stakeholder engagement. Let every stakeholder come to the table, bring their values to the table, coordinate together, have a common voice. Then from that point, when we bring every conversations to the table, then we will know the value system we're building. So if you ask me, everybody is leading. They're leading in their own core areas. And again, they're providing different perspective to development in terms of education and the economy. Thank you.
Adeyemi Olarewaju Ajayi is a globally recognized HR professional and influencer. Thank you for your time on Business Breakfast.
Thank you very much.